All right, a short while back, I did a video about my first DIY electric skateboard. At the time, I promised a second video to show you more of the details of it. Well, here on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, it has been excruciatingly cold and windy, so I'm just now getting around to it. And well, the timing is great because springtime is upon us and we're all gonna be wanting to get on those boards. Welcome back, I'm Tony, and yeah, I'm rocking my NC ESK8 jersey today. This is the official jersey for the NC ESK8 crew, team, whatever you want to call it. For ESK8Con 2024, which is like, I don't know, weeks away now in Las Vegas, I'm so excited about this. This is going to be the biggest ESK8 convention I think maybe that there's ever been. I don't know, there's just about every vendor that I've ever wanted to check out their boards in person and meet them and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're all going to be there. Plus we got races, and if you are part of this community and you know some of those people from social media, now's your chance to go meet them. It's going to be really cool. Now, I went to ESK8Con last year in Las Vegas, and that's where I met Don Juan. He is the owner and pretty much the only employee of Godster Amps. And while I was out there at the Mad ESK8 booth, which he is part of Mad ESK8 as well, I got to talking to him and he was like, man, you need to do a custom built, a DIY board. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I just don't have the skills for that. And I'm all about safety. You know, I want to make sure that I'm going to be safe on it. And he goes, well, I could build you a board. And I said, well, that was where the wheels started turning. As a matter of fact, at that show, I won some Omni ESK8 trucks. And that's where the light bulb went off. Yeah, me and Don Juan, we're gonna work together and get this board done. So I haven't had as much time riding this board as I'd like to by now because it got completed right at the beginning of winter. And I live in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's very windy here. That's why the Wright brothers came here to do their first flight. And with water on both sides of this island, it's always freaking cold during the winter. But, you know, I've gotten out and ridden it as much as I could. So while I'm saying this is a DIY board, I didn't do it all myself. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. You know, at that point, I just didn't have the knowledge. I have a lot more knowledge now after going through the process with Don Juan. I'm just going to tell you that Godster Amps is great. Not only do they do incredible work and all about safety, Don Juan even says if the battery pack that I build is not safe enough to put under my daughter's pillow at night, I won't send it out. I'll redo the whole thing. So what I'm saying is it's okay to lean on somebody else's expertise and knowledge, which is exactly what I did. Now, if you work with him through the process, he will send you pictures almost daily. If he's working on the board, you're going to get a report. He's going to tell you where he's at with it, and he's going to tell you what he's doing next, and he'll ask you questions like, is there something do you like this? Do you want the, position of the switch in another place? All that stuff, it's all about custom. And through the process, I learned a lot. Who knows, maybe I will actually do an entire board myself next time. One common misconception is that a DIY or custom board is less than one of the, less expensive than one of those boards you're going to get on, a production board. But that's not necessarily the case. It depends on what you use and if you've got some stuff that you just want to repurpose into one. But yeah, it's not inexpensive, I can tell you that. Now, I was lucky enough to have a couple of the things gifted to me, like the deck. The Omni ESK8 deck was gifted to me by Brian from Mad ESK8. He's like, yeah, I've got one here. I'm probably not going to use it. Dude, you just pay shipping from Hawaii. I'm going to send it to you. I was like, yeah, totally. And while I won the trucks for this at ESK8Con, a couple of things were sent directly to me by Omni ESK8, and I have a discount code down in the description as well as a link. I'll put links to all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about down in the description, and if I have a discount code, I'll put it in there. So let's get into this. First of all, the deck. The deck is a nice deck from Omni ESK8. It is a 3K carbon fiber deck. They have either a 2-wheel drive or a 4-wheel drive version of it, drop down and drop through with concave. The kit that I got from Mad ESK8 actually had everything to do it as a 4-wheel drive, but I just went 2-wheel drive. Cost of that deck is $459. Next is the trucks, and I actually won these trucks at part of the raffle at the ESK8Con last year. They're 13-inch TKP, high precision CNC trucks, and you can either get this in 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. If it's 4-wheel drive, it's going to have motor mounts on both of the trucks. They do have a double kingpin version of this, but I wanted to have just straight TKP. With this board, I'm looking for stability, and I can still carve just fine on TKP trucks. And the good folks over at Omni ESK8 did also gift me this ESK8 bash guard that is on the front truck. It's $69 for that. To me, would be worth it because it creates a handle that you can use to, pull your skateboard along, because this board is not lightweight. Not only that, it's a bash guard, so it's going to protect the front of your board. For the ESC, Don Juan asked me a bunch of questions and said, well, I really think you should go with the Maker X DV6 Pro plus Bluetooth. It was $320 on the MBoards site. Looks like they're sold out of that right now, but they also have other versions of it. In fact, there's, I think, a new one, the DV6S Pro. But this is a VESC ESC, which means that it has an app, and I can go through and change things on the app if I need to retune the ESC for this for different size wheels and things like that. It's capable of 180 amps per side. For mine, we went with 85 amps to keep it safe and stable. Now, I do have the Omni gear drive for AT, and well, now that the season is kind of kicking in, I'm going to figure out where I want to use those. I decided not to use those on this board for a couple of reasons. For one, the gears on the gear drive for that, well, made more for a production board. So they used the D shape, on the inside of the pulley. We went with a keyway, and the reason why is because, well, Don Juan said this is what most people for DIY use. There's more options, and he just thought it was more reliable, so I had to trust him on that. So that precluded the use of those gear drives. But you know what? The thing is this, I've been using belt drive for a long time. I like belt drive because it's versatile. If I wanted to go with street wheels on this board, I could easily do that, just swap them out and tune the VESC. Don't get me wrong, gear drive is very nice, but belts, they're just more versatile, and well, hey look, they work. If it's not broke, don't fix it, So for the motors, we went with FlipSky 6374 190 kV. Their official name is the FlipSky BLDC Belt Motor Battle Hardened 6374. The remote I'm using I also got from MBoards in Las Vegas, and I do want to say MBoards is a fantastic place right here in the US. They also do repairs on boards. They build boards. They've got some incredible boards. Their new Interstellar looks amazing. They're actually right there in Las Vegas, and they're very, very helpful. Parts galore. So if you're looking for something for your e-skate right here in the US, probably going to find it there. So I went with the VX4 remote from FlipSky. It's compatible with Stormcore and Vest-based ESCs. Supports UART and PPM. There's 3 modes and cruise control on it. And the display on this thing is fantastic. You've got 2 different options for your display, and both of them just contain a ton of information just at a glance. Plus, the way this thing fits in your hand, it just fits perfectly in your hand. I've used all the Seahorse style remotes, and they're fine, but this thing is just right in the palm of my hand, and oh man, I love it. Plus, there's a lot of customization on them. They're very reliable. So I'm using a 2 amp charger on this. I could use up to an 8 amp charger on this. I choose the 2 amp to do a slower charge. I'm looking for battery health. I want to maintain that. So the fast chargers will tend to shorten your battery life. So maybe I'll grab one of those, and in a pinch, if I'm like, oh man, I got to get out for this ride and I forgot to charge the board or something like that. Or maybe, if you were in a situation like racing or something like that and you had to continuously charge your board. So I could do it up to 8 amps. We stuck with 2 amps. So like I said, I have the Maker X MBoards DV6 Pro in this, which also has Bluetooth. Now, when it came to VESC, it's one of those things that you have to know what you're doing with these things, and I most definitely didn't. So he dialed this thing in, man. Through a series of talks with him, he was like, okay, well, tell me about how you like to ride. So he specifically tuned this thing how I like to ride. Now, personally, look, I like speed, I like power. I'm just not a huge fan of the board trying to throw me every time I go. Now, some people are, and depending on the situation, that might be exactly what you want. But this board, I was building this more for my daily rider and maybe a little bit of racing, that kind of thing. So the questions were like, do you like a lot of acceleration off the line? Do you like it to have more of a slow ramp up to speed? All those types of things. How do you like to brake? Everything else. So he tuned the braking on this thing for me. He tuned the speed on this thing for me. It has 3 speeds, but not like a traditional production board where it's like, okay, speed 1 goes this fast, speed 2 goes this fast, that kind of thing, except for speed 1 on this it's pretty slow. I think that's why he programmed it that way. In case I put somebody on the board that hasn't been on one before, he's like, okay, this will be easier. But 2 and 3 are great. Now, they do have different amounts of torque to them, but they're going to get to the same speed. It's all speed on demand. It's all about how you use your throttle on your remote. I pretty much stay in speed 2. I've been on speed 3 a couple of times, and I'm like, woo, man, because when you're accelerating, you don't realize how much you're accelerating until you're like, whoa, I'm going pretty fast here, So part of that programming for the VESC is, you could actually make this thing so it's just torque all the way through. I wanted a nice smooth throttle from the get-go, and then I wanted to pick up when I'm going. If a dog's chasing me, or if a situation's happening where I need to jut out between cars or something like that. Not that I advise that, but I have that on demand, and I love that. Now, the components that Godster Amps uses are always going to be the best that he can get, and that includes the switch. Now, on this board, It has a aluminum block in the back where you're going to have your switch and you're going to have your plug-in and all that kind of stuff. Well, unfortunately, it was a little bit too small for the beefy ass switch that he wanted to use. So he had to do a lot of work on that thing, man, just filing around it and then polishing it. And as you see right here, it looks absolutely beautiful. It looks like it belongs there. And it's a nice click, listen to the click on this switch. So that is to say, if he runs into a problem and he's like, oh man, but he still wants to use that high quality component, he's going to figure out a way, and it looks stunning on here. Now let's talk about the battery. When it comes to the battery, safety is a big deal, and it's one of the biggest components that you're going to get for one of these boards, and one of the more expensive. You know, these things are created with individual cells, like an 18650 or a 21700, that type of thing. Well, he uses only the top quality cells. He uses pre-cut nickel strips. They're more expensive, but they're top quality. And like I said, he is detail focused. He uses extra installation on the cells. And look, if a battery could be beautiful, this battery is beautiful. Something else that he pointed out, you'll see a lot of times when you're buying a battery pack for an electric skateboard or whatever, they might be wrapped in that blue shrink wrap stuff. He said, beware about that, because you just don't know what's going inside of those. You know, how was the wiring and how did they do their solders and stuff? It could be a mess in there. You just would never know it because you got that blue wrap on there. He's got nothing to hide, so he uses a clear wrap so you can see everything. And then he puts a nice label on there to tell you exactly what you've got inside. Not only that, he tests every cell for voltage, and if there's a bad cell, he doesn't use that one. He just tosses that one aside, and then he makes sure that all the batteries are at the same voltage before he even starts building. I think I've pretty much covered everything. The last component that I put on this is these Meepo Cyclone 165S racing wheel set. Man, I'm going to tell you, these things are fantastic. Probably the best pneumatics that I've tried, and I've tried a lot of them. These, man, they stick to the road. They feel great, and they look great too. Cost on those is about $249. That comes with belts and aluminum pulleys for it, so that's nice. If you have an AT or a 2-on-1 board and you're looking for a fantastic set of wheels, I totally recommend these from Meepo. Well, like I said, spring is upon us. You may have a board that you love, but the battery was not doing great before you started to store it for winter, and you do want to store these things at 40 to 60%, and do not let them be in extreme cold or extreme heat for that matter, for extended periods of time. In fact, sometimes what I'll do during winter is I'll just, I've got all these boards on a rack in here. I'll just turn them on, put them in cruise control and let them run for a while, let that battery run down, and then I'll plug them in, charge them back up to about 60%. That's what you got to do. These batteries, they need to be used, they need to have power running through them, or they just start to atrophy. So it's a good thing to remember. But what I was going to say is that if you've got a board that needs a little bit of love, maybe it needs a new battery pack or whatever, you want to change out the motors or something like that, and you don't feel like you could do it yourself, talk to a professional. Godster Amps, powered by Don Juan, does a fantastic job, and I could not recommend them more. I can't really tell you what it would cost to do a repair, build a battery pack for your board or anything, because it's always going to be different. Every situation is different. Just got to talk to him and he'll quote you. I know this probably sounds like a big commercial for Godster Amps and Don Juan, but the thing is, look, he's a fantastic dude, and he did me right with this board. It is now my favorite board. The NYX Z1 from Acetec has moved to second favorite, but I've got love for all the boards, man. Initially, I was like, I'm gonna name this board, and I haven't been able to think of a name for it because it's beastly, but I usually name my stuff after, a lady's name or something like that. Betsy, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I'll think about it. Maybe by the time I start really riding this thing in the spring here, I will have a name for her. She's a beauty, but she's a beast. All right, well, that's all the details of my DIY or custom board, whatever you want to call it. I had a couple of people going, well, it's not really DIY. You didn't do it yourself. Well, I did go through and compile all the stuff, and there's a few little things that I did, especially after I got the board back. And there was some diagnosis that I had to do when I got it back. With Don Juan's guidance, I opened the board up and had to do a couple of little things in there. In fact, the remote was actually a bad remote when I got it. It was just defective. And MBoards was real quick about sending a replacement, but once I got the replacement, Don Juan was like, oh yeah, well, you're gonna have to take out the old Bluetooth module from that, put in a new one, because this is an upgraded remote. It's actually, between the time when I got it and got the new one, it had been updated. So you're gonna have to change out that module. And I was like, okay. Yeah, hey look, I'm not gonna say anybody can do it, but with the correct guidance, you can too. All right, enough of my talking. I wanna thank you so much for your support here in the channel. It's been around since 2013. I've done a lot of stuff on this channel in the last couple of years, 2.5 years. I started doing the E-skate thing because I've always been a skater since, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. I've been skating. In fact, I used to skate at the Oasis Skateboard Park back when Tony Hawk skated there. All right, that's showing my age, but yeah, same thing, San Diego. And when I got on one of these, I was like, oh dude, this has changed my life. So it's the most incredible Zen thing that I can do. I find peace in it, and I zone out everything else except for exactly what I'm doing. And it's like a mind-clearing thing, and I absolutely love it. But if you're into guitar or solar power or other consumer gadgets, I do have some of that content on here. In fact, been playing guitar since almost as long as I've been riding skateboards, and I'm really excited. I've been writing some music and stuff like that. So if you're into that, check out those videos too. Either way, I just really appreciate you being here, and if you like what you see, hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, there is a red subscribe button down there and a notification bell. Click both of those, you'll get notifications when I upload new videos. There's also a thanks button that's down there below this video. Hey, look, if you want to toss a couple bucks my way, everything is appreciated. It is not inexpensive to run these channels, so yeah. But either way, just the fact that you're here is very humbling to me, and I really appreciate you. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll catch you next time on the Vapor Trail channel.